Hi, guys. Welcome to Book Reviews with Fee. And today we're going to be reviewing Origin, directed by Ava DuVernay and starring Ingenue Ellis. So, Origin is the story of Isabel Wilkerson. And she's a real person. She won a Pulitzer for a book, The Warmth of Other Suns. And the Origin, the movie, is following Isabel as she is writing her next big book, which is Caste, Origins of Our Discontent. And the premise behind Caste is that the injustices experienced by Black people in America, from slavery through Jim Crow, through the social unrest of today, it mirrors the injustices of people in other parts of the world, and such as Jewish people in Germany through the Holocaust, and the Dallit people of India who are at the lower echelon of the Indian caste system. And so Isabel is reframing this story of social injustice against a group of people, from racism, taking she's like, everything's racism. Um, so taking the focus from racism and reframing it into caste. And caste is basically when a society creates a hierarchy and determines one group of people based on certain characteristics are the top, and then they have social rungs on that ladder and a lower caste. And she has these pillars in the book, and I won't go through all of them. You'll just have to read the book. But one pillar that sticks out to me is endogamy, which I understand as like it's preventing marriages between castes. And in America, it played out between races with anti-miscegenation laws, when it was illegal for Black people to marry white people, because that was a way that your children could get out of that caste system. Because your kids intermarry, they become lighter and whiter, and then it's more difficult to distinguish between them, and they're able to move through society without being discriminated against as much. So, but that's getting a little into the weeds with the book. The movie itself, it tells you, or it illustrates that journey of the book through an actual journey. So Isabel travels to Germany to speak with, well-known professors of thought, to visit the Holocaust Museum, to, read books and actual transcripts. Oh my gosh. So there's this point in the movie where she's reading a transcript from a meeting in Germany, pre-Holocaust, where these lawyers, they're trying to come up with a system to discriminate against the Jews. And they used, and this is verifiable by reading the transcript of that meeting, they used American Jim Crow laws as a blueprint of how to design the laws of the Third Reich. So that is the evidence that Isabel is saying, okay, because she's having this discussion with this Jewish professor, and she's like, the Holocaust is different. That was about extermination. American slavery was about capitalism and oppression. So that's different than wiping a whole group of people out. And Isabel's trying to get her to see that it's all the same in terms of caste. So having that document where she's in the library with the gloves on with the librarian, and they're going through this transcript, it's like piecing together how it all is the same frame of mind although the outcomes were different. So it can have the same root in a different branch, but it's the same like poison tree of hate. But while all of this is her journey meeting with the famous Dallit professor, and I forgot to write down the name, I'll put it in the description, and learning their history. And throughout this, there are these subplots of these stories where instead of saying, okay, this guy is the hero of the Dallit people, she tells, excuse me, the story of, gosh, I hate when I do this because I wrote down everything and I forgot to write down the Dallit guy, and it tells the story of their hero, and they see a statue of him and he's in a cage, and she's like, why is this guy statue in a cage if he's like this hero? And the Dallit professor is telling her because it's the most vandalized statue in all of India because he was a hero of the Dallit people, and the Dallit people are considered like untouchable. They're the lower caste, and because they were forced to clean sewers and the sewer system by hand, they were, relegated to being, the lower caste and ostracized, and there's a lot of violence and, against that group of people. And they also encounter different laws, like you can't marry out of caste. You can't, there's so many things in society to keep the Dallit people in that caste system, in that position. And it's been going on for like 1,000 or millennia. And that was pretty eye-opening. Although I did read, in high school, I read the book Untouchable by, I did write this down, Narendra, Narendra Jadhav, Jadhav. And I remember reading that in high school and thinking how horrible that system is. And so that story is the story of, like, her father kept these journals and he pretty much resisted that system, and he was beaten for it and received all these repercussions, but her family escaped. And so that I think you should check that book out. And I read that in high school. But the movie itself, so while she's going through this journey of writing this book, you also see this parallel journey of her life and how, it's almost like she sensed that the people in her life were going to leave her because she'd taken like this hiatus from work. And when this Amari guy, Blair Underwood, wants her to get back in the game and write this book, but during this time, she loses. Spoiler alert, so stop it if you don't want to hear it. Okay, back. Her husband, her mother, and eventually her cousin, played by Niecy Nash. Now, she's also interviewing people for this book as well, and I know I'm jumping a little bit, but she has this really insightful, poignant interview with Miss Hale. First name is Miss, played by Audra McDonald. And I love Audra McDonald. If you don't know who she is a prominent opera singer and theater actress. And she has an amazing voice. And she's also a great actress. And she gives this phenomenal performance where she's discussing her encounter with racism as a child and how her dad intentionally names her Miss so that she has to be addressed with the title of respect. And so I'm not going to give that away. You got to watch the movie to see that. And it's interesting that the first pillar in her book is endogamy, and that's the prevention of marriage between caste levels, because she's in an interracial marriage with her husband is named Brett, and he's played by John Bernthal, and he plays the guy in The Walking Dead that basically leaves his cousin in the hospital and boards the door up on this is the first episode, and then he goes and has an affair with his wife because he's like, oh yeah, the zombies got him, he dead, I can take his wife and his child. But anyway, it took me a minute to realize it was him because for some reason he looks younger in Origin than he did in The Walking Dead. But I bring this up because it's like her relationship is revolutionary in a sense because it goes against the primary number one pillar that Isabel outlines as a tactic used in Caste to keep people separated. And I love how whoever wrote the screenplay and Ava DuVernay's direction of their meeting, well, their first kind of date, where he invites her over for cake for his birthday. And it's done so cute. And it's like, when I have not seen, and just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I have not seen the courtship stage or the wooing stage of an interracial relationship on film. And this was so cute. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I liked it. So, anyway, I say all that to say one other thing. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my notes and this keeps like, and another thing. Another part of like discrimination is how the laws or the tactics used to keep the caste system in place, they affect, Isabel says like it affects like healthcare and it affects your diet. And she's saying this while they're at a barbecue eating a plate full of meat, potato salad, and then on the side, potato chips. I didn't see a green vegetable anywhere. And I just remember thinking, even before she said that, I'm like, isn't Marion on dialysis? Why she got a plate full of ribs? But anyway, I will say that I would like to discuss just briefly like the cinematography and the pacing. Now, I'm not, an aficionado when it comes to filmmaking or anything like that, but I have seen a few of Ava DuVernay's works. And one of the critiques that I had was that, like, some of the pacing being a little slow. Now, cinematography, she always shoots beautifully colored, beautifully, like, panning and landscape. She light skin beautifully. Like, that is always perfection. Queen Sugar is always perfection. I will follow in the middle of nowhere. Those two are starring Omari Hardwick. You may want to check them out. A Wrinkle in Time. But I always felt that the pacing just wasn't right. Like, A Wrinkle in Time, I never got that, okay, we're on an adventure. I kept waiting for that moment. But Origin is like perfection. There's this scene every time Isabel experiences a loss, it's almost like a dreamscape where she's lying in a field of like fall leaves, orange leaves, and some of them are falling like super duper slow in slow motion, and she can see the person who's leaving her and they're lying in the pile of leaves, and they're just like in this moment almost like a trance, and then they kind of like disappear, and it's sad and it's moving and it's poignant, and I'm like, wow, that was beautiful. Like, I'm in the movie like, oh my gosh, that was beautiful. But I will say overall, the movie is heavy, but it's worth it. And it makes you think. And while it's making you think, it's also tugging at your heart. You will shed a thug tear or two. And it's beautifully shot. So it's like, So you have those dual storylines and the juxtaposition of this beautifully shot film with the real heart-wrenching meat and ingredients or the real, difficult material of the movie. And in my brain, it made me think of W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folks, when he talks about this dual consciousness. And so she's writing this book, but she's still living her life. And the duality of it just made me think of that. And if you've ever read The Souls of Black Folks, if you haven't, you should. He talks about this dual consciousness of being Black. I think in the book it's older, so it's like he uses the word Negro, and American. And the juxtaposition of trying to align the two or marry the two or coexist with your always being pointed out that you're Black, but you're American. So you're trying to assimilate. It's almost the impossibility of assimilation into the dominant culture because you're always seen as other. So you must be always aware of how other people view you or how you're viewed through a lens of another person. Hopefully I did that justice, but you should be reading the book anyway. But I will say, check it out. It is a worthy watch, and it's beautifully shot, and it's one of those difficult movies. And I say difficult just because I'm in my season of, I want to watch happy things. I want to read happy things. And my major, my minor in undergrad was African American studies. So I feel like I've watched the documentaries, I've read the books, I've written the papers, and I've lived the life. And sometimes you just want to smile and be happy. And American Fiction, which I did review, is a movie that deals with similar material but not as heavy and in a very lighthearted, funny way. So definitely check that out as well. But this is it's a must see as well. So love Ava DuVernay, Ingenue Ellis, Niecy Nash, like everyone. The guy Bernthal, is it Bernthal? Oh my gosh, he was just so kind and loving, in this movie, his portrayal. And he wasn't some kind of bleeding heart. He was portrayed as a kind human. And I love their love story, even though, it was just a shorter part of the film. But if you watched it, please let me know what you think. And I want to just say this. I was looking up reviews, and the number of people, especially people who look like me, who reviewed Origin was minimal versus the number of people who turned on their camera to tell Tyler Perry that his movie Mea Culpa was trash. Why is that? If you're one of those people, you're part of the problem because you're not watching and you're not supporting an amazing film like Origin, right? But you are watching something that you have predetermined you're going to hate anyway. So what's that about? So if you watch Mea Culpa, gave it a negative review, and you did not watch and or review Origin, you are the problem.